What's next for you? How do you feel? What's going through your mind right now?
I'm very excited. I mean, this is kind of the grassroots of all of it. This type of fighting, and the cool thing about the bare knuckle fighting is there's all the guys are in the same room. They're weighing in together. There's no smack talk. There's no garbage going on. The poor sportsmanship that goes on, many times in MMA, unfortunately now. These guys all have respect for each other because they're going to get in there and they're going to do their talking with their fists. Well, I mean, McSweeney, Sokaju, so many of these guys, Mike Richmond, they're very good fighters. They really are, and they've got great hand skills. So it's going to translate over great into this. You got a former boxing world champion, Ishii, on the card. That's pretty cool stuff, So for me, there's a lot of really talented guys on this card, but a lot of guys that are very experienced veterans who aren't going to be nervous to get in there and not have gloves on and go at it. Something that I don't do is predict like fight of the night. I mean, to myself, I've looked at it and said, look, man, there's a lot of sleepers on this card. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the thing is anything can happen when you've got guys with this much experience and that are this good, So that's the thing. I generally don't make predictions on anything, and I certainly don't call winners in cards that I'm, calling, of course. I have no favorites. I'm just excited, man, that I get to call the action, and I probably might need some Visqueen over me if I'm close to the action, but hey, man, that's what this is all about. Well, I mean, number one, look, when you don't have gloves on, these are made to play the piano. They're not made to smash into things, and everybody's bright enough to realize that for the most part. These guys don't want to break their hands. They're going to try to be very accurate with their punches. They're going to, not swing indiscriminately for the most part. They're going to look for the chin, the temple, not the forehead, things like that, and a lot of body shots. And the cool thing about this is you have to fight with your hands open because there's more surface area for defense, for parrying, for all of that, and there's got to be a lot more footwork. You can't just stand in front of people. But when I, as a professional fighter, with or without gloves, look, when you've got your hands wrapped like casts, and then you put the leather glove over the top of that, you can blast away for the most part and not snap your hands, So that's the thing. That's really a big difference. These guys have to be very cerebral about how they approach this. Look, they have to be very good at fighting in close. People that, in MMA, because of the kicks, just in martial arts in general, there's a much bigger what we call safety zone. So fighters stand a lot further apart, and they make their attacks from further out. As close as you and I are is how these guys are going to be the entire fight. So you've got to be good at the subtle things of being able to deflect with your forearms and roll with punches and deal with things on, a fight, in a phone booth, literally. That's really a big deal. And it's a lot more exhausting when you have to stand right in front of somebody and deal with that sort of pressure. I think it's an amazing addition to the card. LeVar, has been in mixed martial arts and combat sports for many, many years. I've always liked the guy. I've always gotten along with him really well. He's a sweetheart of a person, but he's also a very, very large human being who can pack a lot of power. So I certainly wouldn't want to get hit by him, I can tell you that. You can expect action. I mean, this isn't the octagon that is 75 feet across. I mean, that's an over-exaggeration, but I fought in the octagon a lot. I've been around big cages. I've been around small cages. This is going to be a lot of action. And number one, the thing is that people need to remember is when they think that this is some sort of throwback to the harsher days of mixed martial arts or fighting in general, people have to remember that the external injuries, the tiny little cuts that people get on their head will bleed profusely. So cosmetically it looks worse. But it's the internal damage that the fans do not see of the older fighters that I've seen who have sustained massive amounts of internal damage who just aren't right these days. You know what I mean? So this type of fighting is actually much safer, although, look, we're going to have a little scar tissue from it, of course. But it's much safer for the athletes in my mind. It's just a no-brainer on that. Here's the thing. When the UFC bought Strikeforce, we had enough time to look for another job with that. When the IFL was going out of business, we saw that coming. We kind of were given a little bit of warning, so we were at least ready for it. This was a very sudden deal. The acquisition took place, and then the offices in Denver and LA got cleaned out. I was not technically an employee of Access TV. I'm a freelance guy. But it's heartbreaking when those people now have to scramble, to find jobs and take care of their families and things like that. It's business is business, as they say. But look, man, in the end, a little bit of decency would have helped in this one. I'm not a big fan of Anthem. Well, I think that the MMA fans out there now understand that, look, it's just combat sports. Wrestling is a combat sport. Judo is a combat sport. People go at it in those sports, right? Grappling arts, striking arts, kickboxing, Muay Thai, bare knuckle fighting. It's all combat. To me, it's all combat sports. I don't delineate between any of them. Combat is combat, and it's, and I've said, that we're really not in the fight business. We're in the people business, because this is about these people's lives. This is about their backgrounds. This is, so people can identify with somebody who, hey, just lost his mom, but he's still here, or somebody that just had a baby. These guys have families. These are human beings. They're nice guys. They're just wired a little bit differently than the average person who might go cross country skiing for a workout, right? But we're all just in the people business. That's what this is.